This wasn't just a heated exchange. It was an accusation that could shake the FBI's credibility to its core. Senator Blumenthal looks Kash Patel straight in the eye and says, "You lied to Congress." What unfolds next isn't just about firings, it's about whether justice in America is still independent from politics.
2001.
Senator Blumenthal.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Mr.
Mr. Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, thank you for being here today. You'll recall well in January at your confirmation hearing before this committee, I raised the prospect of politically motivated retaliation, and you promised me, as you did other members of this committee, quote, "Every FBI employee will be held to the absolute same standard and no one will be terminated for case assignments." You went on to tell me, quote, "All FBI employees will be protected against political retribution." And you assured one of my colleagues that you would honor the internal review process of the FBI. I'm not going to mince words. You lied to us. In the short time that you've been FBI director, you've presided over a rash of retaliatory firings. 3 FBI agents have recently sued you. They are FBI agents with 60 years between them of distinguished service, rescuing hostages, saving kids from predators, dismantling drug cartels, and their allegations, their civil allegations, are a searing indictment of your tenure as FBI director. But it's not just those 3. The FBI Agents Association has said that your actions, quote, "distract agents from their work, foster fear that their assignments could cost them their careers, either now or under the next administration, and increase the risk of criminal and national security threats by undermining unity and morale within the Bureau," end quote. This association, as you know, is voluntary. It represents 14,000 members, 90% of all the active agents. These are your employees saying that your performance has been unqualified and unfit. And there is mounting evidence that these retaliatory firings were the result of direction from the White House. There have been instances in the past history of the Bureau of political interference and political direction from the director's office, but not the kind of institutional interference that we're seeing from the White House right now. I'm going to ask you, has anyone from the White House contacted you about personnel decisions?
I completely disagree with your entire premise that I have lied or am misleading the FBI. If I were, the results that I announced today by the men and women of the FBI and the historic records we are doing to keep this country safe would not be possible. The men and women of the FBI are responding to our leadership and this administration's priorities. The only way people get terminated at the FBI is if they fail to meet the muster of the job and their duties, and that is where I will leave it. And you accusing me of lying is something I don't take lightly, but I'm not going to get into a tit for tat with you.
Well, let me just ask you to answer my question. Has anyone from the White House contacted you about personnel decisions?
Generally speaking, we always discuss with the White House, OMB, during the budget process, how many personnel we need, who we need where.
Answer is yes.
For
Have
budgetary
you been
purposes
directed
and
to fire people, agents, because they participated in investigations of the president?
I don't receive directions to do that.
Has anyone
I make the
suggested it?
decisions.
Has anyone asked you to do it? The best information is, yes, you've taken suggestions and direction from the White House in firing qualified agents.
Any termination at the FBI was a decision that I made based on the evidence that I have as a director of the FBI, and it's my job, and I'm not going to shy away from it. And as you stated, those are allegations, and that is an ongoing litigation. So they'll have their day in court, so will we.
The allegations are not just in that lawsuit, Director Patel, and I think your testimony confirms that, in fact, you've taken direction from the White House in those retaliatory firings.
It literally
because
does not.
You've acknowledged that, in fact, they have been in contact with you about personnel decisions.
The White House has been, do not put words in my mouth, we're on the record. The White House, like any administration, contacts its agencies on the budgeting process and where it needs personnel and where the mission priorities are. That always happens. If they didn't do that, they would be abdicating their responsibility to law enforcement. I will always work with my partners in the chain of command at the Department of Justice and the White House to ensure that this FBI is delivering the results we are delivering, to include the lowest murder rate in modern U.S. history, to include the most fentanyl seizures in modern U.S. history, to include the most lives saved and the most children found in modern U.S. history. That is a working FBI. That is not a failing FBI.
What you just watched was a tense and fiery moment between Senator Richard Blumenthal and FBI Director Kash Patel, one that speaks volumes about the growing mistrust between Congress and the intelligence community. Blumenthal doesn't dance around his words here. He flat out accuses Patel of lying to Congress. Not misrepresenting, not misleading, but lying. That's a serious accusation, especially directed at the sitting head of the FBI. What's really going on here? Blumenthal reminds Patel of promises he made earlier this year, that no one at the FBI would be terminated for political reasons. Yet, since then, several veteran agents have been fired. And these aren't rookies. We're talking about people with decades of service. Agents who rescued hostages, took down cartels, and protected children from predators. These are the kind of careers you don't just toss aside lightly. Their lawsuits now accuse Patel of political retaliation, of following White House direction to purge voices that didn't align with administration interests. And the FBI Agents Association, representing over 90% of active agents, says these firings have devastated morale and damaged the Bureau's credibility. That's unprecedented. When Blumenthal presses Patel for a straight answer, has anyone from the White House contacted you about personnel decisions? Patel dances around the question. He talks about budgets, mission priorities, and staffing allocations, but he never directly denies it. The kind of evasion that makes you raise an eyebrow, because for something that serious, you'd expect a simple no. This moment isn't just about internal bureaucracy. It's about whether the FBI, one of the most powerful law enforcement institutions in the world, is being used as a political weapon. Whether agents who act independently are being punished for doing their jobs. And if that's the case, it raises a far deeper question: what happens to justice in a democracy when truth itself becomes partisan? That's the heart of Blumenthal's fury here. It's not just about the firings, it's about the integrity of the system. When political influence creeps into federal law enforcement, it erodes not only trust, but the very foundation of accountability in government. And Patel's defense that the Bureau is delivering historic results may sound strong on paper, but in the context of these allegations, it rings like an attempt to deflect from the one question he refuses to truly answer. Is the FBI still independent? And that's what should keep every American awake at night. Because if the answer to that question is no, if the FBI has become another political tool, then we're looking at a crisis that cuts deeper than any partisan debate. It goes to the core of whether truth and justice still mean anything in this country. If you found this breakdown insightful, make sure to subscribe to Left Lens for more sharp, in-depth political analysis that cuts through the noise and brings the real story to light.